Doctrine and Covenants 135 through 136. Joseph Smith gave one of his most powerful sermons at his last General Conference on April 7, 1844, in Nauvoo, Illinois, just weeks before his death. A church member named King Follett had recently died, and at his family's request, Joseph spoke about life, death, and eternity. In what became known as the King Follett discourse, Joseph boldly taught truths that were unfamiliar, even shocking to many saints. While earlier revelations had hinted at them, this was his most complete explanation. He declared that all the spirits that God ever sent into the world are susceptible of enlargement, and that God himself was once as one of us. For many, it was a spiritual highlight. For others, it deepened their doubts. Within 3 weeks, a group of dissenters, who were already disillusioned by Joseph's teachings on plural marriage and his growing civil authority, broke away to form their own church. They hoped to return to original Mormonism, free from what they called Joseph's tyranny. Within a month, about 300 people were attending their meetings. When this group's efforts to bring legal charges against Joseph failed, they turned to the press. On June 7, 1844, they published a single issue of the Nauvoo Expositor, filled with accusations against Joseph and the church. As mayor of Nauvoo, Joseph convened the city council to discuss the matter. He warned that the Expositor posed danger on account of the mob spirit which it tends to produce. After multiple meetings and a 6-hour investigation, the council declared the paper a public nuisance and authorized its destruction. Joseph ordered the city marshal to carry it out. The press, papers, and type were taken into the streets and burned. The result was chaos. Instead of preventing mob action, the destruction of the press enraged Joseph's enemies. Threats circulated that the temple shall be thrown down, Joseph's house burned, and not a Mormon left in Nauvoo within 10 days. Realizing the danger, Joseph placed Nauvoo under martial law and gathered men from surrounding settlements for defense. He also wrote to state and national leaders, believing his actions were legally justified and, if not, should be tried in court. Governor Thomas Ford agreed to hear the saints' case. John Taylor defended Joseph before him, and while Ford dismissed other accusations like arson and theft, he ruled that destroying the Expositor without proper legal procedure was unlawful. Joseph and several others would have to stand trial in Carthage. Ford warned that if they refused, Nauvoo could be destroyed. On June 24th, Joseph, Hiram, and 14 others left for Carthage. The next day, Joseph and Hiram were placed in Carthage jail for their safety, though they had not yet had a hearing. Joseph wrote to the governor requesting release, but no reply came. On June 27th, sensing danger, Joseph asked his friend Willard Richards, "If we go into the cell, will you go with us?" Richards replied, "Brother Joseph, you did not ask me to cross the river with you. You did not ask me to come to Carthage. You did not ask me to come to jail with you. And do you think I would forsake you now? But I will tell you what I will do. If you are condemned to be hung for treason, I will be hung in your stead, and you shall go free." That afternoon, the men heard gunfire outside the jail. Nearly 100 armed men surrounded the building. Inside, Joseph, Hiram, Willard Richards, and John Taylor tried to hold the door shut with their canes and their bodies. Hiram was shot first. A ball struck his face, and he fell crying, "I am a dead man." Joseph leaned over him crying, "Oh, my poor dear brother Hiram." As the mob attempted to burst through the door, Joseph fired a pistol in defense. John Taylor was shot 4 times as he tried to flee through a window and rolled under a bed. Realizing escape was impossible, Joseph ran to the window. He was shot twice from behind and once from outside. As he fell, he cried, "O Lord, my God." Hiram and Joseph were dead. John Taylor survived, but was severely wounded. Miraculously, Willard Richards, though the largest man in the room, escaped with only a grazed ear. Within weeks, a new edition of the Book of Commandments was printed, including a new section now known as Doctrine and Covenants 135, likely penned by John Taylor. It served as both a eulogy and a testimony. Joseph Smith, the prophet and seer of the Lord, has done more, save Jesus only, for the salvation of men in this world. The martyrdom of Joseph and Hiram did not bring peace. In Illinois, persecution grew worse. Mobs drove church members from their homes, burned crops and houses, and whipped men in the fields. 6 months after the martyrdom, the Illinois legislature revoked the Nauvoo City Charter, which forced the saints to disband their police and military forces as well as their court system. Church leaders like Brigham Young attempted legal recourse, but they received no help and, in fact, received threats. The saints thus promised that they would leave the state by the summer of 1846. Most of 1845 was spent in preparation for the saints to leave Nauvoo. Council meetings were held to prepare for the journey, including caring for the poorest among them. The city became a massive workshop. Every home turned into a factory for wagons, clothing, and supplies, while others worked feverishly to finish the temple before they were forced to leave it behind. Church leaders were determined that the exodus from Illinois be done in an organized way so that all could be cared for. However, in the face of increasing violence and threats, including from the government, the first group of saints crossed the Mississippi River into Iowa in poor conditions in February, leaving the temple unfinished. One group after another followed, forming temporary camps and settlements as they crossed Iowa toward the Missouri River. Unfortunately, as they traveled, early spring brought fierce storms and freezing temperatures. Roads turned to deep mud, wagons broke, and many saints fell ill. It took 4 grueling months for the main body of saints to cross the state of Iowa. Brigham Young later joked, "We hit only one mud hole, but it was 6 miles long." Back in Nauvoo, the temple was finally completed and dedicated publicly on May 1st, 1846. Though most saints were gone, only about 300 people attended the dedication. A later group left after the dedication and made the journey across Iowa in only 3 weeks. By June, Brigham Young, the president of the Quorum of the 12, who was living at the temporary settlement of Mount Pigsa, Iowa, next to the Missouri River, wanted to send an advance company west to explore the Rocky Mountains. But before they could leave, a new challenge arose. Captain James Allen of the U.S. Army arrived with orders to recruit 500 volunteers from the Saints for the Mexican-American War. Although bitterly disappointed, the government, after all, had done little to protect them, Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball agreed to help. They organized the Mormon Battalion, knowing it would leave the remaining Saints short on manpower. 500 or so men departed with the Mormon Battalion in July, and the rest of the Saints knew the westward journey had to be postponed, and they would have to survive another winter on the plains. In September, a site across the Missouri River was chosen for their settlement, winter quarters, near modern-day Omaha, Nebraska. In preparation for the coming winter, the Saints built cabins, dugouts, and log houses. They harvested hay and tried to store food, but by winter, provisions were scarce. Their diet consisted mostly of cornbread, bacon, and a little milk. Fresh produce was almost non-existent. Scurvy, tuberculosis, malaria, and other diseases swept through the camp. From September 1846 to May 1848, 359 Saints died at winter quarters. Amid this suffering, Brigham Young sought divine direction. On January 11, 1847, he told friends of a dream in which Joseph Smith appeared and instructed him on how to organize the Saints for their journey west. 3 days later, Brigham received and presented the revelation now known as Doctrine and Covenants 136. It provided specific directions for organizing the Saints into companies of 10s, 50s, and 100s for the westward migration. The revelation was immediately accepted by the Quorum of the 12, the High Council, and finally the body of the Church. It began with the words, "The word and will of the Lord concerning the camp of Israel in their journeyings to the west." The revelation emphasized unity, preparation, and spiritual purpose. It instructed that each company should help the poor, care for the widowed, and share provisions. It also reminded the Saints that their suffering had meaning, that through obedience, humility, and faith, the Lord would lead them to a promised land. In Doctrine and Covenants 136, verse 31, the Lord declared, "My people must be tried in all things, that they may be prepared to receive the glory that I have for them." It was only 4 months after this revelation was received that Brigham Young's wagon company left for the Rocky Mountains, and only a few months after that they arrived in the Salt Lake Valley on July 24, 1847. Doctrine and Covenants 135 and 136 are thus both an ending and a beginning, the close of the prophet Joseph's earthly ministry and the start of the Saints' westward exodus, guided by revelation. And that's what's happening in Come Follow Me this week.